Okay, now we have the Lion project, which is going to address color correction, layer masks, and editing layer masks so they work with your color correction or color adjustment layers, your color correction layers, and alpha channels. If you will notice, I have the channels panel open. I have the layers panel open, which would be helpful if you would do the same. All you have to do if they're ganged together like this is click on one and pull it apart. And now you have the two panels side by side. And then of course over here, we're going to use adjustments. I recommend that you at least start with levels. That's this one. If you hover over it, it will say levels. If you hover over any of these icons, it'll come up what it is. So here's our levels histogram. And it looks like it's a little on the dark side because the pixels are over here, ganged up. So I'm going to drag the white arrow right underneath the histogram, just to the left where the pixels start to go up. So I've got my levels adjustment. Let me move this over just a tiny bit. I'm going to open this a little wider, and there's levels. So that's to the whole picture that I'm doing the levels adjustment. The next adjustment I want to make is color the eyes. And this is where an alpha channel comes in. Notice it looks like we have an alpha channel over here, but the type is italicized. When it's italicized like that, you know it's because we're on a levels or a layer mask, excuse me, a layer mask, a layer that has a layer mask. I'm going to unlock the lion for a moment. See, it says background. It comes in locked. I'm going to double click. I'm going to call it lion. Click OK, and now the lock goes away and the lion now has a name in not italic type. Okay, so here's our lion, and I'm on the lion. There's no like what I call phantom layer. If I go into levels, there's that. And you see your editing in the properties panel. The next adjustment I want to make, I want it to go above levels, so that's why I'm in the levels panel. First, I'm going to go over here to our toolbar and get the marquee tool. But I'm going to hold it down, get the elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to hold both the Shift and Option key. And there is the right eye. So I want both eyes to be the same size. So therefore, I will go up to Select in the drop-down menus, Save Selection, and this dialog box comes up. It says the document is lion. We're going to make a new channel, and I'm going to call it right eye. It's fine with me. Now watch what happens over here in your channels panel. I'm going to click OK. Now, that's an alpha channel. It's not italicized. If I go back to lion, the only thing in here is the alpha channel. So I want two of these because there's two eyes. Notice, see my cursor, it's an X. When I move it inside the marching ants, I get a little arrow with a box with dotted lines. That's the move selection tool. It's very different from the regular move tool up here. It's just to move the marching ants. So I'm going to move these marching ants over to the left. And then the lion has two eyes, so I can now easily go to select again. Instead of save selection, I'm going to hit load selection. Now what I like to do first is go to the operation part of load selection to make sure I click add to selection because I want both eyes. If I don't add, it'll give me the same selection, the same selection I just saved. So I'm going to go right eye. And this is where I made the right eye, so it's going to load it where I originally made it. And now I have two eyes. From here, I'm going to click on levels because I want the new adjustment to go above the levels layer. Okay? And once I do that, because it comes up with a layer mask on it, it recognizes the two areas that I want to receive the adjustment. I'm going to go over here to hue saturation. That's the first one over here. Here's adjustments. I'll pull this out. Here's adjustments. Hue saturation. Now you'll see my properties panel will change. It's hue saturation. Note, I haven't made a color adjustment, so there's no difference in color in the eyes yet. But notice now, because I had two sets of marching ants, if I hold the Option key and click, this is the thumbnail right here. On the thumbnail for the layer mask, that's what it looks like. So it's only going to let the color adjustment through the white area. If you remember, black conceals and white reveals. Now notice, I'm on a layer mask layer, so there's that italicized type, hue saturation. I want to go back to my lion, which is the RGB layer. So I'm just going to click up here so I can see my lion. So there's my lion. There is my layer mask on hue saturation and my alpha channel, which is the right eye. So now I have, in order to adjust the eyes, I have to be on the adjustment icon, which I'm going to click. Hue saturation comes up in properties, and I'm going to try to change the hue here. There we go. See, I'm moving the hue slider, and I'm giving the lion, it's turning purple. Maybe the lion will have purple eyes. I want to also increase the saturation. I'm not real thrilled with the lightness darkness slider in hue saturation here. If you want a tint, then you click the colorize button, which we're going to have to do in the next exercise, but I'll show you what it looks like. When I go to tint, it goes to its default, and then because it gets rid of all of the color that was there before. Now I can tint it all different colors. Right now I'm going to leave it at the purple that I had when I didn't have colorize clicked. So now our lion has purple eyes. Next, I want to colorize the tongue. So I'm going to go over here to my tools panel, and I'm going to get the quick selection tool. I like to use the quick selection tool. I make sure the hardness setting is at 100. It's not a soft edge brush, and I like to go between 9 and 11. That's about as big as I like to get with the quick select tool. And there, it selected the lion's tongue immediately. Now, right now, this hue saturation is for the eyes. I need to call up another color correction to get the tongue. So I'm going to do hue saturation again. I have a brand new one. Notice over here, I have the tongue. I'm going to also start naming these. Hue, and I'm going to put tongue. I leave hue so I know that, even though you begin to recognize the icons at first, when they first introduced them, I didn't recognize them. This is the eyes. Just good work habits. I'm going to go back to the tongue layer, click on the icon so I can get the hue saturation, and I'm going to move all the way to red. So I have a nice red tongue, but see how not perfect it is right over here? I'm going to go to a paintbrush right now. Make sure I have a hard edge, because I like to do, if I'm going to soft edge something, I like to do it all at once. So I have to go onto the mask. See how the tongue got on the lion's fur, and it isn't quite on the whole tongue. So I'm going to get my zoom tool, which is the magnifying glass tool. I'm going to zoom in. And when you want to paint on a mask, right now, as a beginner, you should only use white or black. Because shades of gray will change the opacity, and we don't want to do that right now. So I'm on the mask layer of the tongue. I think my brush, if I recall, B is the default for brush, is a little too big. So I'm going to hit the left bracket key to bring it down a little bit. I have black in my foreground color chip. Black conceals, so I want to hide the color from coming through. So I'm just going to paint black here. I'm painting on the mask now, and black here. And now I want to add, I want some color to come through over here and over here. So I'm going to flip these color chips by hitting the X key. Now I have white, and I'm going to touch that up here, and I'm going to touch that up there. And now the tongue looks fine. I'm going to go get black and get just a little bit more of it off of his fur or upper lip or whatever you want to call it. I would do a save as right now. And if you're one of my students, you have to put your name first. Karen Jossel Lyon. And I'm just going to save mine onto my desktop. See, right there it says desktop. I'm on a Mac. So I'm just going to save it onto the desktop. Save. I want to make sure I don't go over because I can only do like, I think I've done 11 minutes so far. This is going to be at least a two-parter. So this is going to be Lion, probably part 1. So now we have the eyes and the tongue. I want to go back to, that's 100%. That's a little on the small side. So I'm going to go in here and make the lion just a little bit bigger. So now I have the eyes and the tongue. I'm going to make the face. Let's see, I'm debating on whether to start a second section or not. I just went and did something without telling you what I did. The third tool down is the lasso. I'm getting the polygon lasso. I'm going to soften it, but not now. Just to do a quick and dirty kind of selection around the face. Ta-da. And again, if you're one of my students, you have all these images. If you're not, you probably are one of my students, but just not in Photoshop. You can contact me for the images. Okay, so good enough for now, because I'm going to show you what to do. Now we're going to get, I think I'm going to get the photo filter color correction. Now remember, they all automatically, when there's marching ants, they all automatically have a layer mask. Whenever there's marching ants, the layer mask says, oh, this person wants to color inside the marching ants, and it will make you a black and white mask. If there were no marching ants, it would be all white like our levels layer. So there is the mask. See the mask over here? It's very hard edge. We do not want to leave it hard edge. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my color correction. I'm going to color correct the face. I'm going to leave it at this warming this warming one. I'm going to make the face orange. Now, those hard edges just don't cut it. So I'm going to go to fill. Now you have to make sure you're on the mask. I was on the icon, the color correction icon, so I could edit it. Now I have to go onto the mask. See how there's a line around it? I'm going to go to filter, the drop down filter, blur. And don't use blur and blur more. Gaussian blur is probably the best thing to start out using. You get this little square. You can click around the mask and notice this moves. That's not it, and it's giving me a real-time preview. I think it could be a little, it's 8.5. See, if I went to 0, it would be 0. I think somewhere between 8 and 10 actually works quite well. See how soft it is? And I'm going to click OK. Now, before I start editing the mask to protect the eyes and tongue, because notice their color is changing. Look at the color of the eyes and tongue because the yellow is over them. You can move these above, but that isn't always pure. If I move these above, and I will do that, it's still going to pick up some of the color from underneath.